Well, what can I say? It's been months in the making, if not years in the making. Welcome, everybody. My name is Nadeem Ibrahim. I'm the host of Brew, Bytes. And today, I can't think of anything better than to kick this off with a great topic, cracking the code, which is redefining leadership and technology. And today, I have my very first guest, Nawal.
Hello.
Who I might say is a close friend of mine, good friend of mine that I've built over my time in Dubai. And somewhat, I think over the years, you get to know someone for not what they are as a person who they represent in a company, but over time you get to know them for something they truly are. And everyone's got a double life, this to say, right? As I got to know Nawal, I realized that she's one of the evangelists in our industry, especially when it comes to thought leadership. Welcome, Nawal. Welcome to the first...
Thank you.
One of the first episodes.
Congratulations.
Okay, but before we go into things, I like to ask my guests, which is, as a child, what was your go-to game?
Oh, wow. It was actually Super Mario. Remember that Game Boy we used to have? Yeah. And actually, my grandma got it for me.
Really, yeah? Yeah. On which console was it, right?
Yeah, it was like this Game Boy console like that. The one that was like gray color with two purple buttons.
Oh,
I can remember it till date.
Really, yeah?
Yeah.
And was that your go-to like everyday type of thing? Or did you
because it was like easy to do, like to use. And it was very like, I don't know if you remember that, but it was like the charge where you put it in there and that's the game.
Yeah. Like
that's it, like a floppy disk.
8-bit days, showing our age now, right?
Yeah, and it was just like black and green screens.
Yeah. I think mine was more, I don't want to give too much away, but I actually was speaking to someone today and they reminded me of the Atari.
Oh, yeah.
The Atari,
too,
right?
Yeah.
The Atari was one amazing console that for me, actually, if I go one step back, my father actually bought me a Spectrum. That's where you used to have the cassettes and you put it in and it used to make this horrible noise. And then you wait 15 minutes and then not until your brother comes in and presses stop. Then you have to go all the way back and then reload the game again.
Yeah.
So that was it. That was a bit of a weird thing. Anyway, so today we're going to be talking about leadership and coaching, right?
Yeah.
Which is a passion point of yours and something that, as I was sort of mentioning at the beginning of this, is, your time in this industry has predominantly been around tech.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a bit about, like, let's tell the guys who you are, and then we'll dig deep into sort of what leadership actually is and how you have sort of started to adopt this as another profession.
I'll go back like in time. I'll take you through a memory lane here. I think it's like 15 years ago when I joined the industry, and it was so different. It was when, internet has just went into things and social media started growing, and, in terms of like advertising and what's there from a SaaS perspective, it was merely just a media game. And looking back into where we are today, from today to where we were, I'm now, really. Things have been changing in an exponential rate. And that made me who I am today, right? So this dynamic of this changes, the dynamics that are happening, it made me into an emergent leader that I like to identify for today. And more so, it also grew me on the empathetic side of things, right? Because, being in Dubai in a very diverse community, it taught me a lot about so many cultures, so many different perspectives that are coming in. And without empathy and active listening, it would be very challenging for people to, find synergies and do great things together.
Mm-hmm. And do you find that there's different types of leaders that you've experienced over your time?
Yeah.
And can you maybe like let us know and what kind of leaders you get out there?
Yeah. During my, when you were within a leader, when you were the leader, you would see them as visionary or people's person and whatnot. But then when I went into studying about executive coaching, I realized that there are actually 5 types of leadership. So 4 that are predominantly that are there, or personas, right, that are there. There's the leader from the front, which is the visionary leader, the one that takes his team forward, like full of passion. There's the leader from beside, which is basically more on the collaborative side of leadership. So this is the team that actually loves to work together, make things together, and drive the company forward. There's also the leader from behind, which is a very valuable leadership type as well. And basically these leaders are more on the empowering side. So they push their team out there. They kind of like, they make sure their team are fully set to be in their position. And then there's the leader from the field. So this is the thought leader in the market that basically brings in the thought leadership piece over.
So what kind of leader would you say that you are now that you've given all these, like, was it 4 or 5 you just mentioned there, right? I'd love to know like how you would sort of assess yourself in that.
Like I would say that people would actually see me as a challenger. I've always been in the market, challenging the status quo, wanting to drive that agenda further. Within my day-to-day, I love and enjoy being a collaborative leader. So this is where I love to work with team members who come from diverse set of backgrounds to really bring something innovative forward to our clients and to solve for major business.
But how do you find it, like in Dubai itself? It's one of the fewest places on the planet where we have such a diverse bunch of characters from different backgrounds, different countries, everything is different, right? And it requires a certain skill.
Yeah.
You talk about being collaborative.
Yeah.
And bringing these people together. How do you do it through your coaching? Like, what would be the right technique? If somebody's listening right now and watching, is what piece of advice would you give them to be able to collaborate with all these different characteristics in the room?
Yeah. If I were to choose 2 lenses to see this from, it would be, or basically skill sets, it would be curiosity.
Curiosity, okay.
Asking really powerful questions, being curious about what's it behind that is being said. And most importantly, from a second lens is vision, right? So once you're in there and you're aligned on a vision that you're trying to achieve here, everything then falls into place, right? So if I were to choose, these would be the 2 aspects. Yeah.
Okay. I really was hoping not to ask this, right? What kind of leader am I then? Well, how? Now you know.
I would say that you're a leader from the front.
Explain why. I'm just curious. Like, why?
You're bold, you want to drive things forward, you're a very risk taker, you're risk averse. So I would say that you definitely have that. And you have there's things you want to do, that drives you.
Do you find though that there's not the right leader out there, right?
No, there's no one right leadership for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
We're going to come on to that. We're going to come back to this in a second. What I wanted to really sort of get into is around about the taboo and experiences through coaching and leadership, right?
Yeah.
Like throughout your journey, okay, and this is going back in time for you, right? Throughout your journey of where you are today in Dubai, where it's the Dubai dream for many, is this maybe go through that taboo, because that taboo is starting to sort of, or stereotype. I know when we had our chat initially, you're like, it's not a taboo anymore. Remove the word taboo, which is very interesting to know, because many countries still have a form of taboo or stereotypes that they're breaking down. We see this in many of our sister countries around Dubai. Right, we're going to hold on to that. We're going to come back to that and the different types of leaders that they are. Okay, but I would love to get into your experience of how you got to where you are, because you would have experienced different types of taboos, stereotypes. How long have you been here in Dubai?
15 years.
15 years, right? And I've been in Dubai 5 years. And over 5 years, things have changed so much, let alone what 15 years would have been like. And the next 5 years or 10 years in Dubai is going to be completely different. And we see what Saudi is doing right now is completely different than maybe 5 years. Like, Nawal, friendship here right now, like, can you just maybe, I would love to get a bit of insight of your journey through to how you got to from the minute that you left Lebanon, for example.
Oh, wow. I might get emotional. I'm joking. I still remember the moment I decided to leave and come to Dubai. It was a very emotional moment. I come from a very small city called Sidon. And I always saw myself, saw Lebanon, which is great. It's a great country. And I always saw Dubai as a dream for me. It's an international city. It's full of opportunities. And the moment I decided to come, it took me a week. And it was just a week. I got my interviews in, got a job offer. 1 week I was in Dubai. It was just like that. Crazy.
Wow.
Coming in from, I was very young. I was 21 at that time, you know, and coming in with the little experience that I have and the character that I have. And I started navigating through Dubai as an adult, you know. And looking at, I remember since you went into the diversity part, the first, one of the first meetings that I had was actually a table full of, where I was looking around it and I was like, wow, there are 14 nationalities on this table. Wow, you know? And everyone speaking, okay, English, they come from the same language, we're talking the same language. However, it's like, you know, like it's very diverse and they all have their backgrounds there. And I was very young and I was like, wow, where is this gonna take me? Fast forward into now and looking back at things, I really felt that there has been a lot of work that has been happening, right? Whether that's gender, whether that's, you know, stereotypes or work-life balance, especially for women, or expectation from the society on women, and what is your role, and how is, you know, getting into the workforce and actually growing within that workforce, and what implication does that have on you? And you know, looking at it now, I think we have had a major acceleration in the tech world. 28% of women make up the workforce, which is a great acceleration. Yet on gender parity, we're 135 years away.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you maybe, which countries?
So this is within the MENA region.
Okay.
We're talking about the MENA region.
And what's the benchmark like?
We want to like minimize that to, let's say, 50 in terms of how do we grow women? But that's not really, I think the question would be more on what would it take us to have everyone live to their true potential, right? Okay. So as numbers are very important, but then also having the ecosystem around you really, you know, making it easier for you to show up, to give it to your full potential. This is what really matters, more than just a number out there, right? And that means there's so many systems that we need to be looking at, whether that's from the hiring systems to the promotion systems, to even, you know, looking at schools and universities and how they, you know, kind of set up women and men for the future. So there are so many lenses to look at from that dimension.
And what was your biggest, how did you end up coaching and leadership? Was it something that prompted you to do this? Was it something? COVID, really? COVID? It's
always COVID. I hear a lot of stories about COVID. You know, COVID was the time where you kind of like calmed down.
Yep.
Yeah. And you basically, because I had a very like larger than life, kind of like wild life out there, you know, like I was doing a lot of things all at the same time, very busy.
Okay.
And then COVID happened. And with COVID, you know, you're kind of sitting there. And you're like, okay. You know, I start getting into these existential questions and, you know, like what's happening in the world, what's out there. It's like a pause button that was pressed. And I won't hide that it was actually very, you know, coming from like being someone very social to being like stuck in your home. It was very tough for me. But then
in Dubai was very tough.
In Dubai, it was very tough for me.
I was stuck in the UK, it was even worse. For like 18 months. In like
maybe something else would have happened to me in the UK. But yeah, I think it was, 2 months, 3 months? But I took it so seriously because I really wanted to protect my family as well.
Yep.
But that means that I also limited myself from a lot of social interactions, which turned out to only be on video calls and whatnot. And that moment, that pause in my life made me want to really reflect on what matters to me. What am I missing? Like, how can I live a further fulfilled life? How can I wake up every day with, you know my energy, like wake up every day and like, let's go, let's get it done. What do I want to accomplish today? And it needs to be something that really drives you from within, right? And I met I met a coach, and she was giving a speech, and I was like, I connected with that lady, and I was like, how does this work?
Gosh,
and then I went into it, the full experience. I got coached on, she was my coach, and it was a transformational journey for me. I wouldn't say that coaches fixes people, but it more like holds the mirror. And that was the first thing. I remember the first time we sat together and she was like, I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to raise the mirror. And in that moment, from there onwards, I can see like I went so much into coaching, and I was like so curious about her coaching techniques and what she's doing, and the questions she's asking, and then reflecting on how that made me more aware about my triggers and something like around imposter syndrome and like all of that, because high achievers, imposter syndrome, they kind of like correlate in some cases. And that is when I discovered coaching, and then I went into it. I was like, this thing drives me. This drives me.
Did you find when you started to go into coaching itself though, did you experience any challenges along the way where you thought, am I ever going to be able to put this to good use?
Yeah.
Because there's having a vision and actually being able to practice that and change lives or even change a person for what they are. I still remember, me and Nawal actually had a conversation. This is going back a year back, I think it was.
Yeah.
I was at a coffee shop. You remember?
Yeah, I do.
And we were talking just about business stuff in general. And I could sense Nawal was doing something that was very odd. And this is where I came to realize that you had been, going through your coaching and leadership course. And suddenly you started to just navigate your way through my questions to get to something that was very deep and unpicked a lot of emotion inside me. I was saying to you, I don't know what's going on with me right now, but I'm feeling like this. And I'm on the verge of probably bursting crying right now, but you're doing something. And then I think you took a pause and says, I shouldn't be practicing this on you because we shouldn't be doing this with your close friends, right?
Yeah.
There must have been something though, from your own personal life that would have had you want to coach, right? Was your mum or father like leaders in the house that you took inspiration from?
I'll surprise you. I wanted to do psychology.
Oh, okay.
And then there was like, you're going to work with lunatics. That was the awareness back then, right? I loved how my dad was there for me, really. Like, he was a great listener. And not just listening, like the way he believed in me, the way he trusted me, the way he empowered our relationship. And I'm not an easy person, like I have so many things that are on my mind. I want to do a lot of things, and I'm a risk taker. Parents get scared. Scared, But he trusted me, and he encouraged me, and he put me out there. He let me leave the house when I was 21 to travel to another country with full trust and encouragement. That really, if looking back, that really was the ignition. Yeah.
That's a form of leadership in the household.
Right? Oh, yeah.
To be able to push you, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure, from what I know, you've took a lot of inspiration from that. And when you sort of unlocked whatever emotion you unlocked through me, kind of brings me on to my next we want to get into another space of coaching and leadership in the tech space. Like, is this perception, of the leaders of today and the leaders of the future?
Yeah.
Have you found that, with leaders of today, that they have to readapt themselves or optimize themselves to become relevant and related to the way, cultures are today especially in the tech industry? It's forever changing, and then you also have, we are in, one of the hubs of new startups. True. Whether it's from here or in Saudi. And do you find that, they have to adapt a new style of skills of coaching? Because, if you have your own startup and you've got employees of 3 or 4, your leadership skills are going to be very different, let's face it.
True.
But you might have experiential growth in maybe 1 or 2 years that you suddenly have 80 people. And then your leadership has to adapt. And then you have the CEO today who's been the CEO for maybe like 10 years or so, and it's had to go through COVID and pre-COVID and post-COVID. Like, what would you say if, for these current CEOs or current leaders, perhaps not CEOs, they say this, current leaders, and then the newbies of the future leaders of today, what is it that they need to pick up?
Let's take a pause here. Yeah. I was looking at an article that was a recent report that was released by Harvard Business School. It the first thing it started with is around leadership and the global leaders. And the first thing they tapped into is what are the updates on the leaders' objectives, right? And from there, you would see that the first pillar is polarities and paradoxes and how leaders would show up in these situations, because it needs a leadership skill to be there. There's another pillar, which is the skill set, right? So there has been a lot of changes in the skill set 10 years ago. Today, the toolings, we need some kind of like new skill sets to continue delivering great results today, but then also build for the future. And then there's also the potentializing. Potentializing is basically, which is the new concept that is being built. I think it's not very new, but it is now more prominent, especially in the tech or any companies that has a tech infrastructure within it as well. Potentializing, basically supporting and coaching people in your team to live up to their full potential, right? You need them currently to deliver on such roles, but then they have dreams as well. They have career plans. They want to go somewhere, right? How can you guide them through it? And another report that basically showed currently that only 15% of people would look into their direct leader as a coach.
Only 15%?
Only 15%.
Wow. Because I always believe that my philosophy has always been that you want to surround yourself with smart people or people who you aspire to be.
Yeah.
You know, you want to be like them.
Yeah.
You know, and still they get this.
Yeah. And and it was so much eye-opening to me. And the first reason for that was because of their listening. Their presence.
Of the leaders.
Of the leader with their team.
Okay.
Right? The way the engagement is happening is not helping them to open up, to show their vulnerabilities, to be okay in showing up their vulnerabilities to their manager, for example, or even more so in the way they're being asked a question, right? How is that manager? And a question can be asked in many different ways, and it can go from judgmental all the way to how I can help, right? With different choices of words, and more so on active listening. And you know, fun fact, people can our watchers can research more about that. There are actually 3 levels of listening.
Oh God.
So yeah, and
I'll be very
you
bad
need
at
to
this.
get
You barely get me up.
Yeah, but you're listening. You're
listening
listening
right
2 and listening 3 levels, right? So you're with it.
You do this. This is the most I've actually listened to you.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Amazing. And maybe not, but
what are the 3? I'm intrigued now. The 3
levels of listening. So when I'm talking to you right now, you might be in your head and you're thinking about your next question. So you're not really listening to me, right? And level 2 listening is actually you're listening to me, and you are listening to me. You're not just hearing the words that I say.
Okay.
You're listening it with the energy that I'm giving. You're listening to it when there's an excitement, or when there's like a lower energy in play, or there's scaredness, not just the words, right? And then the 3rd level of listening, which is how you're immersing yourself in the place. And that is within that, because I'm with active coaching, so that's the method that we go with. And that has changed a lot of things. That has changed actually everything.
Based on what?
You know, when you're in a discussion, when you're in a session, and even when you are, let's say, I'll give you an example. The toughest discussion would be with someone you don't agree with.
Yeah.
How many times do we face that on our day-to-day?
Every day.
Every day,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, you do.
You're coming in, you're agitated already, you're not up and up, you're just there to prove yourself and leave, or to make a point and leave. You know, that the objective of the conversation is not really to, and even much more on your direct report. I need you to do this, and I need you to trust me. And there's a lot of triggers that are happening. There's a lot of personality that's coming into the table without actually, you know, being engaged in a conversation.
Is that a cultural thing, you think?
As in, like, what we thought a good leader would look like?
Yeah, because we're talking about, you know, leaders who have been leaders for, you know, 10 years or so, ages, and then new leaders, right?
Yeah.
So this is specific to leaders who have been leaders for quite some time, right?
Yes, I would say yes. Yes and no, because even new leaders, usually what's happening, right? So high achievers, they're doing great, right? They get promoted, they become people managers.
Yes.
Right? Usually that's what's happening, let's say 80% of the time. They come in, the first thing they do, they project.
Okay.
right?
How does that change though? If you're a leader from the side, leader from the front, does that change that?
No, that doesn't matter, right?
Doesn't
Because
matter.
as long as you understand what kind of leader you are and you have full awareness to what kind of leader you are, your
Yeah.
team will be okay with whatever that
But what
is
you're
present,
saying-
right?
But what you're saying is that maybe not the majority, but some leaders are projecting. Is this
Projecting. This is what success look like. This is how you should behave. This is when I was in your shoes, I did that. Great. We're not the same people. We're not the same
What's
person.
triggering that for them to be like that then?
I think it's experience.
Okay.
I believe it's experience, but then and also believe that, when you're coming in as a new leader, there's a lot to also know about yourself. It's a new chapter. It's a new chapter, right?
So it's great you say that, because that moment that we had where you really tried to unpick me unfairly, I would say. Okay. You did say something about self-awareness, and that stuck with me since then. It's probably one of the reasons why we're doing this right now as well, for self-awareness. Is that what's lacking with majority of leaders, of legacy leaders, I would say?
Yeah.
Because I think, and it comes into another space that I want to talk to you about, is the Gen Zs of leaders.
Yeah.
So what is the difference then? Do you think the Gen Zs don't hold this way, or they have this self-awareness versus those who...
Yeah, we've done a lot of research about Gen Zs, I think,
Okay.
to the level that they stop labeling us as Gen Z. But
Yeah.
okay, we're going to still label them for now, just for this session. Their generation has access we never had, right? With that access, they grew into different... We can't say all Gen Zs are the same, but let's say the ones that are very passionate, that have very high self-awareness on their values, right? What is okay with them, what is not, their boundaries, and saying, oh, I want hybrid work to be an actual thing in the workplace. Like, I don't want to come in from 9 to 5. Why are you making me do that? And there's so many other things as well, right? Like mental health days and whatnot. There's a lot of asks that's coming in from their end. And look, they're the future.
Yep.
Right? And we need to listen to them. We need to understand them as well. As much as bridge them towards us, we also need to meet them halfway, right? So there needs to be, I believe it will be like a formation of how redefining leadership would be through Gen Z's authenticity and values that they really carry very heavily with.
What advice would you give to those current new leaders, let's say, right? You have a tech company in Abu Dhabi or in Saudi, Dubai, anywhere in the GCC right now, okay? You're young.
Yeah.
You know.
And a lot of leaders are young now as well.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So what advice would you give them to future-proof themselves based on them being a leader?
Yeah. I'll tell you my point of view. But then I want to also talk about a different dimension, a different lens of this. My point of view is it all starts with building relationships, right? What kind of relationship you want to have with your team, and how are you showing up as a person when things get tough and when things are easier. That all defines the kind of leader you are to that team. Now, a step back as well on this is that when you get into a leadership position, there are two spectrums to look at. There's the leading of volumes, which is like, the workload, everything that's happening. And you need to have a very strong vision. Without a vision, if your team can't see the vision you're seeing, how can they contribute to it? Mm-hmm. How can they be aligned with it? How can they stay engaged and, support it and row with you in the same direction, right? And then there's the horizontal lens. That horizontal lens is the skill set that you gain, right? What are the skill sets that I need on my team to actually get them? And this is where collaboration comes in. Mm-hmm. And this is where you get into the creativity and innovation part of your work, where you bring in people from diverse backgrounds within that skill set and manage or lead that team further. And as an individual contributor or as a high achiever that has been recently promoted, this is not something you have been seeing on a day-to-day basis, right? And when you get into that new position, you need to start looking at things from
Interesting you say that,
different
because
dimensions.
you kind of find that a lot of new tech startups that come in are people who come from, tech backgrounds themselves, right?
Yeah.
They've built a new piece of tech that they want to put in the marketplace. And they have their own skill sets. I work with a diverse bunch of different people who are extroverts, introverts. I can't remember the name of the theory behind it, but you're a color. You can either be a red, blue, or green, or a hub, right? I think it was a hub red for me, where I go into conflict quite quickly. But I've met a lot of individuals who specialize in, let's say, data and engineering, and they're greens.
Yeah.
But what I have found is, with most of them, when they end up in leadership roles, they often find it very difficult to be able to adjust, because they're suddenly dealing with people who work in PR, or they're dealing with people who work in marketing, very fluffy and very visionary, and then they start to lose control of things, and then for them they become the introvert of all introverts.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying not to, sorry, anyone who's listening in right now, I'm not stereotyping any individual if they come from a tech background, but it requires a different skill set, and especially with young individuals, we said we won't label as Gen Zs, who are coming into this space and then suddenly are up against the big tech companies and they've had rapid growth. How would you advise someone who comes from a technical background that has to adjust and deal with these people? What would be the first 2 or 3 pointers you would give them to sort of put them at ease that leadership is either you bring it, you build it through life experiences, the ups and the downs, or you can almost take a step back today and say, I want some coaching to help prevent me in these obstacles.
Fabulous. I love that question, and I will tackle it based on studies that has been done. The first one that I recall on top of my mind is McKinsey. They found that as much as you can have an engaged culture internally, which is basically driven by vision, by having you showing up as a leader, that as a person to the company, it showed that 33% of them won over peers. The other one is, how can you as a leader drive an inclusive culture? And let's look into what's inclusive and diverse cultures. Basically having everyone's voice heard, right? Heard, listened to, appreciated, with all the, when you're a leader, there's a lot of stress that is coming on you. There's a lot of fast decisions you need to make. And there's a lot of pressure. Let's be honest, right? You're under a massive pressure. But then research showed that if you take a chunk of your time and you dedicate that to building a more inclusive culture, right decisions are 87% of the time. Okay. Which is outstanding, especially in fail fast, do fast, fail fast, kind of mentality, especially in the tech world where you kind of build something, you let it fail fast, let go and move on. If that becomes less by nothing, it's 87% of the time you're actually getting it right, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And the third one is basically when you look at mentorship and coaches. I believe in a culture of coaches and mentors. Having that giving mindset, when you're either giving your time or giving your knowledge, or giving just your ear, to a person that's working with you, that you have been collaborating with on a day-to-day basis, or mentoring someone, on another team within your skill set, and then growing them and witnessing and being with, right? That drives cultures forward. And actually, they've seen that productivity increases by 25%. And that's according to Deloitte.
Very, very interesting you say that, because, through my being in this industry for 18 years in tech, and I think I would, wherever I've been, alhamdulillah, I've been able to have the privilege to be able to nurture people.
Yeah.
Without realizing I'm nurturing them. And I've had, one guy from Australia who's now in New York, he's, done really well for himself. And then I've had a guy in the UK who also wants to come to Dubai now. And he went off and did some good stuff after we sort of, split separate ways where we worked before. And even today, where I am today, nurturing a bunch of very smart people and see them progress and evolve over time, it's nothing more than just heartwarming to see that happen.
Yeah.
Especially people who do things for a passion. And
Yeah.
tech, when you're in tech, it has to be passion. It has to be passion driven. And I think having that level of passion feeds into you being that type of leader. That leader who thrives on passion will then nurture his or hers, business and team to create. I like to think of it as a sense of community that you're building, positive communities within an organization. And I see that more coming out of new businesses or new tech, where you just have to look at their aesthetics in their office space, communal space, breakout rooms,
wellness space,
wellness
lactation space.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot going on. Yeah.
And that's really, really so different of what you see versus what we have seen and what we have probably witnessed through our journey going throughout. And sometimes you find that if you have to work in a new tech or a new business that's just set up with a young leader, it can often be a big adjustment as well, because and that's not easy in itself, and then it's not easy for that leader, but it's not easy for that employee or that person who's come into that workspace, but great conversation around this. Look, we've spoke a lot about leadership and coaching and your amazing journey coming in, and something that I like to do quite a lot now is sort of let's diffuse away from that, have a little bit of fun for a few moments. Okay, so as I have been building, we're in tech. It's all about tech culture, guys, okay? And ChatGPT has been trained based on Brew Bytes' approach of what it wants to sort of help achieve, create a sense of tech culture community from the series that we do here. So it's been trained, it knows a bit about you. And we're going to go on what I call Espresso Encounters, from Brew Bytes. So I've got 2 cards here. One card, so 2 cards here, guys. Oops. 2 cards. Okay. Now, both these cards have got separate questions.
I feel like I'm in the Matrix right now.
You
the
are,
blue
but
pill,
I don't have the
red
blue pill or the red pill. Okay. One of these
Yeah.
is a question that's been left for the guest to answer and converse a conversation with. The other one will be our friend, Mr. GPT, who essentially will pose a question known about you and known about Brew Bytes.
Okay.
Which we'll have to unpick. So I'm going to give these 2 cards for you, and
This one.
you're choosing this one. Okay. This one. Damn. Okay. So we have our first question from Mr. GPT themselves, I'll say.
All right.
Okay. Hey, Nawal. It's great to have you on Brew Bytes. We're thrilled to have someone with your amazing background in digital advertising and team building join us. Here's a fun question for you. With the growing trend of remote work, how do you see it affecting the culture of collaboration in tech and advertising industries? Will virtual workspaces spark new innovation, or could they take away the energy of face-to-face interactions? Wow,
ChatGPT.
Okay.
All right. Look. All right. So there are. I love to see it always from. I'll open 2 perspectives to this.
Yeah.
Right. The first perspective is, look, we are able now to do a lot more with the same amount of time. With all the connectivity that we have, I'm connected to the global teams. I'm connected to a team member who have decided to take a holiday somewhere and stay to work back from home. It gave a lot of freedom for people to actually be connected and do much more with the same amount of time. It also bridged teams together. So it was a very important meeting for you, but you had to travel to a meeting somewhere else, and you can't really attend it personally. You still have the same experience. And that is something we always faced, right? So there's a lot of more, where are you based? You will have a lot more focus and support and towards the other, maybe team members in other countries, right? In terms of personal interaction, it all depends on how companies have operated that, right? So personal interactions, I believe, will always be like this conversation that we're having. Imagine we're having it online. You know, it will have a different feel to it, right?
Funny you say that. And I love the question that Mr. GPT has asked, actually.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not being biased. I mean, he is learning as we go along.
Yeah.
But I actually, before I came to Dubai, I was going through an onboarding phase of almost 18 months. I was stuck in the UK. So 18 months of me having to sort of build a relationship, a cold relationship with my team members, with people in the industry.
Yeah.
Even like meeting you online for the first time.
Yeah.
That sense of chemistry is a very virtual type of chemistry.
True.
A chemistry that I think is, if you, back in that time, I would say it wasn't authentic. But looking back, I would say it was authentic. Because we do our day-to-day jobs in virtual spaces pretty much.
True.
Most of our calls that we have is on a monitor nowadays.
True.
And which is where, you know, I always say, let's just have a face-to-face meeting, even if it's for 15 minutes, because for some reason, I get more out of the same person in a face-to-face 15-minute conversation than I would do on a 15-minute virtual conversation on whatever platform we're using these days.
Yeah.
You know, so it's completely different. But what it's done, though, it's actually opened up, I think, a new economy, an economy of virtual workspaces, and also spaces where you have remote working from. You know, you have the likes of WeWork, for example, you know, who sort of started these sort of spaces where, you know, any new company can go in and before they sort of expand out. But even that in itself had different ways of working. So, yeah, I would say so. Anyway, like, you want to add something?
Yeah, I actually think that also as a leader, right? When you are leading team, usually like previously, like traditional leaders would see their team work and they would get that sense of, okay, they're actually doing the job, right? Now with the hybrid mode and because it's continuing, there's a value to it. There is a value to it. But at what cost, right? And this is where companies, that's why I'm saying it depends on the company, right? If it's a transactional company, if it's a company that's more on operations side that really doesn't need team members to be there, right? Face to face, like and actually if they are hybrid, it would work better for them, great.
Yep.
But if it's a company that's all about creativity and innovation and it needs to like, you know, build itself further, I believe that hybrid more in the workplace would also add a lot of value, meaningful hybrid, not just be there from 9 to 5. We're not talking about that, right? But then also changing the metric of performance. And I think that is important because when we're looking at the day-to-day, come performance reviews, right? How are you going to evaluate your team members?
Unfortunately, some people would remember the last thing that they've done.
And that's biasness. And that's because there's a merit for connection. And with hybrid modes, it might be missed. So within that leadership, to enable a sustainable hybrid workplace, they need to relook at the matrices of evaluation and how they work with their team and be extra clear with them in terms of communication and how they are directing them to the future.
Amazing. Look, this has been a really, really interesting conversation that I've enjoyed every bit, and the guys here behind the scenes have enjoyed quite a bit. Nawal, thank you so much for giving us your experience into leadership and coaching, and you know, I'm sure the audience listening or watching will find this very, very motivational. I certainly have found it motivational, so thank you.
Thank you.
And guys, please subscribe, listen in, and share around. Thank you.
Bye.